بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله المبعوث رحمة للعالمين أما بعد. So we wanted to continue on the theme إصلاح ذات البين. Then we want to talk about a few situations that are real world situations that pertain to the reality of the family. Here we take a little bit of a turn because now Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam becomes the point of focus with regard to keeping the family together. One of the things that comes up in the Quran overall, and we find it actually also in Surah Yusuf, وَلَا تَيَسَّوْا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. And we talked about this a little bit as a principle. Here, what we find being said is have hope in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the raja. And we separated between optimistic thinking, just looking at the good, and we separated between optimism and hope, or raja. The raja is tied into iman. Who can just briefly tell us what the difference is between the two? Between hope and just being optimistic in light of iman. Don't worry about being right or wrong, but it is important to interact. Who can tell us the difference between the two? Anyone? Okay. So, what's your name? Hamid gave us a nice foundation. He said, optimism has to do with an attitude. And I'll add to that, you're looking for the good in the situation. Right? In hope, you're expecting, and I'll add to it, but you're expecting from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And more than expecting from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, we have, we're working with ourselves, because it's not always the case that we're going to have that sense of certainty, yani yaqeen, but that the good comes from Allah, whatever the situation is. Qadr has two sides to it. It has the bitter side and the sweet side. And all of us have experience in life when we go through situations and they're bitter, and then we look back and we're like, that was the best thing that happened to me. Unfortunately, that's a reality. But when we're in the situation, we may not look at it that way. And this ayah of the Quran, it talks about, when we talk about dua qunut, right? We know about dua qunut. Dua qunut is when you're broken. You know what I'm saying? You're expressing to Allah, I'm broken. I don't know how to manage this situation, but I bring this to you, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You handle it. And so here the Quran is forbidding the believer from not expecting good from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And the reason why we bring this back is because, wallahi, brothers and sisters, the situations that people are going through, that we ourselves may be going through, is enough to break anybody. It is enough to break anybody. And when it comes to family struggles, it becomes even more sensitive. And I've never seen, in my short period of time on earth, about 50 years on earth, I've never seen as many people affected by family issues as I've seen in today's time. To the point where it affects their work, it affects their health, it affects their ability to think clearly. And it gets more and more problematic for some people. So that's why the issue as a principle of hope is extremely important. But what we said hope is what? We're expecting or we're waiting from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala was good. There's another angle to that, which we haven't seen this in the Ummah before too. But we hear it. And we're not going to condemn the people, but it's not necessarily all that healthy. See, I may do it to Allah. I pray, I may do it to Allah, and I don't see any results. This is not a drive-through machine, people. You see what I'm saying? That you drive up because you feel hungry at the moment to the restaurant, you put in whatever you want, and then you get what you want and you move on. That's not how Iman works. We have to be clear on that. That's not how Iman works. And that's part of the problem with the optimistic thinking. Not to say that we shouldn't be optimistic and look at the good in life and in bad situations. That's not what I'm saying. But that can't substitute for the work of Iman. The dunya is built with hardship and ease. The dunya is built with hardship and ease. Just like it's built with being sick sometimes and being healthy sometimes. When we don't have that clear in our minds, we think that this place is Jannah. We confuse what it is that we believe as Muslims, and we believe this place is Jannah. And you know what? Technology has got us. You know, technology does some things where it's kind of similar to Jannah on some things. Food like that at an instant. There's things that have been facilitated. For us, it's very easy. You can go from one country to the next almost at a blink of the eye. People before, they used to doubt the Isra wal Miraj. But we go on airplanes and we go from one point to the other like it's nothing. Blink of an eye almost. But still, with all of the advancements in technology and everything, we have to keep certain things that are very clear about how we believe about the dunya. It comes with hardship and ease. And there's another angle that it becomes difficult for us to accept. We're not going to go extreme with it like some people have gone in the past. But when you have a dominant lifestyle, the dominant lifestyle is not really rooted in Iman, you're going to have to deal with some major struggles. If in the Muslim world with Iman and no justice, we deal with struggles, we deal with stuff that doesn't make sense. Like the lack of respect for the human being, lack of regard for human dignity. It doesn't make sense in a Muslim environment. And then you come into an environment where Iman is not the center, and basic respect for the human being doesn't make sense either. But the set of circumstances that we live, there's confusion in it. So we're going to experience a lot of things, but I want to emphasize that point, that hope, waiting from Allah, expecting good from Allah, regardless of the situation, and being patient in the process of sabr jameel. We learned that from the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. But it's a sword for us. It's a sword. Because some of these situations are extremely difficult. Now when we come back, we want to shift to the situation where the brothers of Yusuf, alayhi salatu wasalam, they're forced to go to where Yusuf is at. They're forced to go to Egypt, which is a place of civilization and advancement and all that type of stuff. One of the things that we can get from the story, even though this is the story of a prophet, two prophets, alayhimus salam, what was the position of Yusuf in Egypt in relation to his brothers? What was the position? What was his relationship to his brothers in Egypt? Aside from that type of relationship. Well, he wasn't necessarily the ruler, but he had position. Why is that important? Because his brothers in some situations, You have to be in the position of strength to deal with the situation. I'm talking about family problems. See what I'm saying? If you want to bring islah, if you want to better the conditions, there's some situations which demand that you're in a position of strength to deal with it. Why? Because if you're not in a position of strength to deal with it, the family members themselves will take you under, like in the case of the brother of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? If you, lo samahullah, if you're in a situation with your siblings, and just as let's take you out of the example, but you can cooperate with me. If there's a family and there's some brothers and sisters in the family, right? The worst one of them has power of attorney. Has power of attorney over the mom or the father. The worst one of them. And not only power of attorney just at the basic medical level, but power of attorney over the assets. Over the assets. And the person is a zalim. He was never there for the mother or the father. But he shows up from California in his brand new Tesla. He figured out how to get the power of the attorney. He paid the lawyer. He was able to talk to the parents. He got it done. Got the power of attorney. Are you going to be, is that person, the family going to be in the situation to deal with that person 100%? Huh? Oh, let's talk reality, people. Yes or no? Huh? This is the type of stuff that happens when we don't prepare properly as parents and so on and so forth. And we leave this environment, for the children, for the siblings to deal with. And sometimes it's not easy to judge. But without a will, without a last will and testament, Islamically and legally, you see what I'm saying? As parents, we put the situation, right, before our children is one that's up in the air. Up in the air. In the case of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he's not a parent, he's an older sibling. I mean, he's a sibling, not an older sibling, but he's a sibling. What aided him to be able to correct the situation in the family goes back to what you were bringing to. He had an edge over them. But over his brothers. They were in need. He had some power, yes. But here we're not talking about power just for power. You see what I'm saying? We're talking about using power correctly. Sometimes in our community, we don't understand the role of power. See what I'm saying? We twist it completely. The role of power is not to humiliate the people. The Prophet ﷺ, when he, with Fath Mecca, when basically the Muslims gained the upper hand in Mecca, after they went to Medina, after they were oppressed, after they established Medina, one of the first things he does is he establishes everybody's right. He had the ability to take revenge, alayhi salatu wasalam, but he didn't. He had the ability to take revenge. And they did some bad stuff. Some of them were distant family members, neighbors, whoever. They did some bad stuff. But he established everybody's rights, and he showed them what is the correct way. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, the same thing. So in some situations, we're not going to be able to deal with it unless what? Huh? Yeah, there's power. If the child is on addiction, is addicted, and they have losing their mind, take it back to the issue of the power of attorney and all these things. If the child is over 18, still your child, but are you going to be able to take a decision for that child? No. You see the dilemma that we fall into? You see the dilemma that we fall in. Matter of fact, at 13 and 14 and all that, they start, in the hospital systems, giving them privacy. On multiple, and it goes on other issues. I don't want to get into that. But the example is clear. That's why we have to be wise. Some situations in the family, we're not going to be able to deal with them unless what? Unless what? I'm talking to you? Yeah. 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 Unless there's power to deal with it. That's why we have to, unfortunately, people, we're playing chess. I'm being very real with you and dealing with family situations, we're playing chess on multiple levels. So here, one of the things that comes up is that when the 9 brothers go back, Yusuf encounters them, but one of the things that he analyzes, the story says, Yusuf thought how humbly and movingly they speak now. They changed. He's opening the space for them. They did rotten things, dirty things, but he's opening up the space for them, what? To get a chance. But he's not what? He's not naive. They did bad things to wreck the family, but he's not totally cutting them out. But he's in a position of strength, right? So he can protect himself in that regard. And he's giving them space. And then he questions them on the situation. Do you understand now how you behave with Yusuf and his brother when you behave like those who do not know Allah? There's a standard in the family, right? Standard in the family. This is not the way of the Muslims. But what you brought into the household, it goes against the way of the Muslims. And look at the consequence or the set of consequences on the family itself. He just didn't let it go like what? Oh, you say I'm sorry and that's it, right? It wasn't like that. He made them analyze themselves and come to terms with the situation. Not only analyze themselves, it's not just intellectual. Because he says how humbly and movingly they speak now. And part of it was because they were talking about their father and the way that we're talking to Yusuf and so on and so forth. But these brothers, they had to be humbled at that level, unfortunately. Right? And so you see, like, even in this story, at the end they say, by Allah, it is true that Allah has preferred you over us, and it is true that we did wrong. Yusuf answered, no. No word of blame on this day. Allah will forgive you out of all those who show mercy. Allah is the most merciful. Yusuf didn't use his power and abuse it, and now it's my time for revenge. See what I'm saying? Now it's my time. No, he didn't do that. And then he moved on, and he gave him a shirt, and he said, take it to my father, and laid over his eyes. That's some miraculous type stuff. Mu'jizat. And so his sight returned back, and then the dream was fulfilled. One of the things that I wanted to focus on briefly, people, so we focus on the idea of what? The importance of hope once again in dealing with this type of situation. We brought in the dimension of being wise that some situations we need to put ourselves in a position of strength to deal with it, or else the situation will overpower us. I wanted to speak to something that is very important. And that is the situation that's going on with boys. Okay. As a community, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, even though our primary focus is parenting. There's some studies that have been done, and this is real stuff because it's affecting the marriages. at this point, right? So there's 5 things that are destroying the motivation of boys and also undermining their manhood issue. The education system is doing damage to the boys, right? The girls, they can sit there. The boys, they need to be interactive. Part of the problem in this society now is like everybody's the same. Or, males and females are like the same. No, there's biological differences between the two. That can't be wiped out. And so boys, in that regard, they respond to education different than girls. And so here, what we are learning is that, for instance, the way that the education system is done is undermining the boys because it's not appropriate to where they need to be in their development. What else is undermining the boys that's coming from the Muslim community itself? That's in the education system, that there's some issues going on that when they're not being educated properly. What are some of the things that we do or some of our communities do with regard to boys as opposed to girls? Sisters want to speak for yourselves? Do you have an idea? And is the question clear or not really clear? What are things that we do as a Muslim community with boys that we're not doing with girls and is really affecting the boys? Huh? What did you say? Did you say something? Say it again. Okay, and then what about the boys? Spoiled like yani, no said didn't know that. You corrupt them. If it's spoiled in that way, yes. I agree with you. But I don't think that's what you meant. Flexible in a good way or in a bad way? Being flexible is not necessarily bad, but yeah, can we go harder than this in the short amount of time that we have? They're on point, but let's go harder. Let's be a little hard on ourselves as a community. All those things are correct. But there's something that I'm looking at that is really dark that it needs to be addressed. Because here in the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Yaqub was correcting these boys in the whole time. Even Yusuf had to step in. Yusuf had to help his father because the sons, they wrecked the family. And they did damage. They caused damage, real damage. But what we do with some of the boys is we go like this. We turn the other way when we know that they're doing haram. We know that they're doing haram, but we turn the other way. The other thing that we do, which is a serious problem, is we ask the young ladies, mashallah, forgive me sister, but I'm going to be open. The young ladies that have never been with any man, we ask, correct my child for me. Marry them off. You know he's using drugs. You know he's into this and he's into that. And then you send them off to somebody else's family, somebody else's child to correct that child. And then he comes back, and then the imam has to hear it because he's hitting the sister, he's doing this, he's in the Bronx somewhere with some other females, And at home, she has to be the perfect wife. This is real stuff. I'm not talking fake stuff here. And I'm not saying this to bring, just to talk about problems. No. I'm saying that we have to address that. The boys are being lost. And so the video games, the lack of attention, the foods even disrupt the boys. Like not looking at the health of the boys and how they eat. Instead of having a disciplined young man, we have a lazy guy who's all over the place. And then we try to build a person out, and then when it's time for them to get married, they can't hold the family down. They may have figured out the money piece, but they haven't figured out the piece of being a father. See what I'm saying? Now, this is the other stuff that I wanted to address. So we have, come back to that point in a minute. We have the education system. The video games, I'm not going to say video games are bad, but I'm going to say video games have issues. The addiction level is at the level of heroin. That's by studies. At the level of heroin, that's not, the imam is making something up. He heard it on, some conspiracy. No, that's by studies. So we have these young boys on this, and they're addicted. They're addicted. And then they don't go outside. They don't play. They don't exercise. And then if they get caught up in pornography and all that, their whole understanding shifts. See what I'm saying? That's real talk. Add on other things to that. So all the cases may not be that extreme, but definitely we have to focus on the development of the boys. Strengthening them, helping them control themselves. They have the discipline. The other issue is that part of this problem is spending time with them. It's never too late, never age. They may not respond, but we try to look for the opportunities to spend time with them. Now I want to go to another example. This example, the reason why I'm like that is because it hits me hard. I've been dealing with a family maybe 7 years or something like that. So I watched the family grow. It's a complicated situation. Can't talk about every detail of it. Complicated, super complicated, wallahi. But a lot of it has to do with the way we function as a community. But one of the things that comes up is there was a divorce. Okay? So, in part of our community, not all of our community, when the sister is divorced, what happens? Does she can grow up here in the U.S., but does that necessarily mean she has a second decent chance? Sister, what do you think? What do you know? Well, you don't want to speak? Stigma. No, they're like dead. It's not just a stigma, they're like dead. And like dead means, okay, now the brother, he will call. It's okay if I can come and visit you. Or you could be like a second wife. Or you can do this and do that. Why do I mention that? Because now that sister, if the father left, what happens to the kids? What happens to the kids? And what else happens there with the mom and what? Yeah, all the responsibility is on the mom. So where's the thing of this story at? Just like boys need special attention, Girls need special attention. Okay? So when the father is not around, what do you think happens to the girl? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, yes, that's just the bottom line reality. Let's stop sugarcoating it. So now little Asma, or her father Ahmed is no longer around. Okay, any Abdurrahman who's not Abdurrahman in the real sense, but Abdurrahman that acts like trash, he can say whatever to Asma. And Asma, because she's looking for her what? For her father, so her heart is like, oh, you love me. You're confused. People, I have a case right now within the last couple of weeks, one of the most difficult cases I've had. It's probably like the third of these types of cases that I've had that have been difficult. I watched a young girl grow up. Her father left the country, left the family, got remarried, and she knows that reality. My father remarried, and I'm dead to him. Okay? So she has issues. Why? Why did Baba leave me? That's the first. The second thing that comes is now she has all kinds of struggles with herself, emotional and this and that. So she goes to school. She's not in her right mind. It just gets worse and worse. Okay? We said mom is having a difficult time. So mom herself is looking for some stability. And she may not find a brother that's willing to take her on and take the youth on as well. It's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. So you know where we're at? Where we're at is this. She got pregnant by a beautiful, mashallah, rich, well-to-do Muslim brother that doesn't want to take any responsibility. Right? No responsibility. So, guess what happens? Remember, the little girl is looking for stability. She's looking for a family. She was living with him. So now, all of a sudden, he doesn't want to take responsibility. She's going through all these chemical changes. She's crazy. Yeah, she had emotional issues from before, and now she has emotional issues. She had emotional issues from her father leaving, and she has emotional issues from the brother not being a man. He was a man to be able to what? To create children, but he's not a man to take the responsibility. And the story gets worse. Okay, layers. So now she doesn't have a place to stay. Now, she just figured out I'm no longer in a relationship because he cut me off. She doesn't know why. Then she has to confront the whole issue of, well, it's up to you. Because we like to take the hadith, al-walad lil-farash. Now we get religious. The hadith says, al-walad lil-farash. The hadith says that, the child is of the bed. Meaning that the mom has to take responsibility. That's not exactly what the hadith says 100%, but we twist it in that regard. So now she has to deal with, do I abort the child or not abort the child? And I'll be honest with you, as an imam, you have to sit there and you look. You don't have a place to stay. Okay? Your mental health is not right. You don't have income. You don't have family support. It may be controversial. Maybe I may not come back after this talk, but yeah, abortion is on the table. Then it gets worse. Come to find out that she was living with another guy before that was beating her. Another Muslim brother. Why do I say it like that? This is dark. You see what I'm saying? Girls need their fathers in their lives. The divorce doesn't mean you divorce yourself from the children. Fine, it didn't work with the sister. But when girls don't have their fathers in their lives, and brothers, it's not just only just fathers. It could be your sister. You see what I'm saying? It could be your sister. It could be your niece. It could be your cousin. They need us in what? In their lives. If that's not there, just like the boys, there's consequences that the boys will be irresponsible all over the place, this, that. The situation of the girls becomes very, very problematic. And then it comes to a point where what? We can't control it. Because now she's 19, 20. And what are you going to do with a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old in the legal system? Like what? What power do you have in that regard? See what I'm saying? I'm not saying that to kill hope and this, that. What I'm saying is like we have to build on what we have. We have to be there. We have to be there. You cannot say, it's not like, okay, oh, mashallah, today, I decide if I'm going to go to Hawaii for vacation, or I'm going to go to Hajj, or I'm going to go to Puerto Rico. No, it's not that type of decision. You see what I'm saying? It's a real responsible situation. Not only that, the community has to be involved. Because sometimes the only thing that we have is each other. The masjid community, sometimes that's the only thing that we have. Especially, on the side of the young boys, we're losing them. We're losing the young boys. And so they have to be integrated into the community. We have to give them that time without pushing them out. One of the things that we do is what? When they come into the masjid, they start playing. If they're playing in the salah, what do we do? Some of us. Anybody? What do we do? Yeah. We should be happy that we hear them there, even if they disrupt us. That means another like in the salah, you hear the little boy, he's repeating after the imam. You know what I'm saying? He's screaming out a little bit. That's what tonight you heard him in the salah. Yeah. No, I'm not saying, I'm not I'm not specifying this place, but I'm saying like that environment, I'm saying that we have to shift. We have to shift. The young brother comes in. Look, I've had brothers come to the masjid in Nihai in Ramadan. Okay, brother, come on. I hate to say it, but come on. All right? I've had brothers in the salah line, they faint because that's just the reality. If they can't come to the house of Allah because we're so perfect, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Okay, they don't pray, they play, okay, fine. But they're close to the house of Allah. You see what I'm saying? We have to keep them in the circle. So let's close with that. But the positive points, we have to be there for our family. There's no getting around that. There's no getting around that. And the role of the fathers in the lives of their children is extremely important. But also, some situations, people, we need help. We can't think that we can do it alone. And that's the thing, we don't have the time to get into that. But with the whole issue of what goes on with the single mothers, sometimes the single fathers as well, that's beyond us to deal with in this situation. But we have to know that our kids are more vulnerable. They're more vulnerable. Not only the single parent, but the parent that is not what? Well, yes, not responsible, not involved. That's why when we started off, we saying that sometimes, yeah, they push us away, but we have to still keep trying. We can't give up. We still have to keep showing that we have a presence, even if they don't. Even they hurt our feelings. They hurt our feelings. The other issue I want to leave with this, especially those of us who are getting older, we really have to think about that whole issue of it. The whole issue of last will and testament and how to organize our affairs. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيك. Do you sisters have anything to say, or any brothers, any last things before we go?